Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing an Aromage deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this with you guys because I've been seeing a lot in the comments recently requests for an update of this deck. And this deck is an absolutely crazy deck revolving around always gaining life points and getting your life points to insane amounts. And it's a really fun deck to play around with. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting your requested deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Aromage Jasmine. So Jasmine is a really good extender for the deck because it has some really amazing effects. So during your main phase, while your life points are higher than your opponents, you can normal summon an additional plant monster in addition to your normal summoner set, which is very good to give you an additional extender. And also, once per turn, if you gain life points, you get to draw a card, which is really good to extend your plays and get into all sorts of different crazy cards that we're playing in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Aromage Laurel. This card is really good as well as an extender because if your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can special summon this card from your hand to your side of the field. And if you gain life points, you can target a non-tuner plant monster on the field and treat it as a tuner this turn. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can gain 500 life points, which is really good for this deck because this deck is always focusing around gaining life points. We then play just a single one of the tuner monster. This card is a really good card because during either player's turn you can discard this card, then target an aroma monster in the graveyard and gain life points equal to that target's attack. And then while your life points are higher than your opponent's and you control an aroma monster and this card's in the graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish when it leaves the field. I just play a single copy of this card as an extender because I really like Laurel instead of this card because Laurel just gives me a free special summon. We then play just a single copy of Rosemary. I like Rosemary as a one of because while your life points are higher than your opponent's, if a plant monster you control attacks, your opponent cannot activate monster effects until the end of the damage step. And then once per turn, if you gain life points, you can target a face monster on the field and change its battle position, which is pretty good because it helps you with high attack point monsters, change them into defense position, and then attack through. We then play a single copy of Majorum. Majorum is just a one-up to me in this deck because it's a level 5. She's a level 5, which is just not that great to be able to normal summon her out, but she does special summon herself because she has the ability that while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you take no battle damage from attacks involving your plant monsters, and you can use each of her effects once per turn. When a plant monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can special summon her from your hand and then gain 500 life points. And if you gain life points, target cards your opponent controls up in your graveyard up to the number of roam monsters you control and banish them, which is really good for this particular deck just as a one-of. We then play 3 copies of Lone Fireball Awesome, being the most insane plant monster in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you contribute this card to special summon any other plant monster from your deck, so it's a definite 3-of. We then play 3 copies of Evil Thorn as well. Evil Thorn is really good because you contribute this card and inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent and special summon 2 more Evil Thorns to your side of the field in face of attack position, which helps us go into all sorts of different link plays and is going to give us more life points to our opponent if we go first, because we're going to be able to do 300 points of damage right off the bat. For the tuner monsters, we're playing a single copy of Rose Girl. Rose Girl is just a great level 3 tuner monster for this deck to go into all sorts of different synchro monsters. 1 copy of Spore as well. Spore helps you because it can level manipulate itself to go into all sorts of different synchro monsters in the deck, so it's a definite one-of. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom as well for the hand traps, which this card is great for this deck to stop your opponent from searching, so you play this card as a 3-of. And then my favorite card in the entire deck is 3 copies of Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. So this card is crazy as a 3-of in this deck because during either player's turn, except during the end phase quick effect, you can discard this card to apply this effect for the rest of the turn. Each time your opponent special summons an effect monster during the main phase or battle phase, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So, if your opponent special summons out 25,000 attack points on their side of the field over the turn, then you're going to gain 25,000 attack point or life points, which is really, really good. I love this card in this deck, and it helps out a lot with your aroma monsters because basically you just discard this card, and then you're going to basically get every single one of your aroma's effects off during your opponent's turn. So it's a definite 3-of to me. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Monster Reborn, just as a great extender for this deck to be able to bring back any of your plant monsters to your side of the field, so you can go in for additional plays. One copy of Instant Fusion, because you're going to be special summoning out additional monsters from the extra deck to your side of the field to go into all sorts of different synchro monsters and all sorts of different XZ plays, or all sorts of different synchros and link plays. We're then going to be playing 3 copies of Ready Fusion, because Ready Fusion is a great extender in this deck for all sorts of different plays that we're going into this deck, which this card is just so good to be able to play, because what you're doing with this card is basically paying 1,000 life points to give you a tuner on your side of the field, which is really good. We then play 2 copies of Aroma Garden. This card is really good as a field spell, because if you control an Aroma monster, you can gain 500 life points, and also all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense until the end phase of your opponent's next turn. And if a face-up Aroma monster you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you gain 1,000 life points, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Aroma Gardening. Aroma Gardening is really good in this deck, because if you normally special summon an Aroma monsters, except during the damage step, you can gain 1,000 life points. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, while your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can special summon an Aroma monster from your deck, which is really good because you play the Majorum that can special summon herself to your side of the field. For the last 3 spells, we're playing 3 copies of Super Solar Nutrient. This card combos very well with our copy of Lone Fire Blossom, because you contribute one of your lower level monsters on your side of the field to basically get out a copy of Lone Fire from the deck to go into all sorts of extension plays and get into some really amazing plays in this deck, basically giving you access to every single monster in the entire deck. So this card is a fantastic 3-of to play in this particular build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Dried Winds. Dried Winds is if you gain life points, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy it. And if you control an Aroma monster and your life points is at least 3,000 higher than your opponent's, you can pay life points equal to the difference and destroy face-up monster your opponent controls whose combined attack is less than or equal to the life points you paid, which is really good because cards like Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood combo really well with this card. We play a single copy of Humid Winds. Humid Winds has the ability to pay 1,000 life points to add an Aroma monster from your deck to your hand, and if your life points are lower than your opponent's, gain 500 life points. We then play 2 copies of Blessed Winds. Blessed Winds has a really good effect to be able to send a plant monster from your hand or face from field to the graveyard and gain 500 life points. Target 1 plant monster in your graveyard and shuffle it into the deck, and then gain 500 life points, or pay 1,000 life points to special summon an Aroma monster from your graveyard. So this card is a great card as an extender for this deck, which is why you basically play 2 copies of Blessed Winds, but you want to play all 3 of them because these cards are all 3 fantastic extenders for this deck. And it really helps out with cards like Dried Winds to be able to board wipe, because this deck doesn't do that many board wipes outside of Dried Winds, so it can help you deal with a lot of problematic monsters that your opponent might have. So this card is a fantastic card in this deck to help out with problematic fields. So that's it for the traps. Let's get into the extra decks. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing just a single copy of the Aroma Sweet Majorum. I think just 1 copy is totally fine for some of the other copies some of the other cards that I'm playing in this deck. So this card is just a good wanna, because it has the ability that when your life points are higher than your opponent's, your opponent cannot target plant monsters you control with card effects. You only see each of the following effects this card once per turn. If this card is synchro summoned, you can add a Humid Winds, Dried Winds, or Blessed Winds from your deck to your hand. And if you gain life points, you can target an opponent's monster and destroy it. I think this card is a fantastic 1-of in the deck. You can play it at 2 if you want to, and drop the other card I'm playing, which is a single copy of Queen of Thorns. Now this is my personal tech of the deck. You can totally play a second copy of Aroma Sweet Majorum in its place, but I chose to actually play this card over the second copy because each player must pay 1,000 life points to normal or special summon from their hand, except for plant type monsters. So this card can actually really deal with your opponents swarming the field, which is really good for this deck to make a big gap in between yours and your opponent's life points. We then play just just a single copy of Borreload Savage Dragon. Borreload Savage is here because you're going to be going into all sorts of link plays in this deck. So this card is a fantastic one of in the deck for a boss monster because it gets really big and it's a walking negation. So for the copies of the instant fusion and ready fusion targets, I'm playing a single copy of Rose Spectre of Dun. This card is just a really good target for our ready fusion. One copy of Sea Monster of Thestalos, and a single copy of the Peacock that is a zombie, or fairy, excuse me. This card is really good as a additional tuner in the deck to go into some really good plays in this particular build, and a single copy of Millennium Eyes Restrict being the instant fusion target. All three of these are targets to summon out with ready fusion, and this card is a target to special summon out with your instant fusion. But it's a really good card to play in this deck because you can make it really easily and stop your opponent's hand traps. So for the link monsters, we're going to be playing a single copy of Access Code Talker just to give us additional pops on the field, which is really good. One copy of Unicorn to spin stuff, Phoenix to pop spells and traps, and two copies of Aromaseraphie Jasmine. This card is a fantastic 2-of in the build. I have considered playing 1 or actually 3 in this deck because this card is so good and you go into it so often, but I found that 2 is the optimal number for me. Because what this card does is if your life points are higher than your opponent's, this card and any plant monster this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle. And then you contribute 1 monster this card points to special summon 1 plant monster from your deck in defense position, and you only use each of the effects of this card once per turn. And then once per turn, if you gain life points, add any plant monster from your deck to your hand, which is really good because it can search your copies of your Evil Thorn, you can search your copies of Lone Fire Blossom. This card just basically does it all. We then play a single copy of Needle Fiber because of the amount of tuners that we play in the deck to be able to special summon, which this card is just so good to be able to climb into some other plays. One copy of IP Masquerena because IP Masquerena lets us go into our copies of our Unicorn during our opponent's turn, and a single copy of Link Rebo because we do play level 1 monsters in the deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I really love the way that this deck plays. It's a really fun deck, and it's very budget to be able to play around for just the core, because the core of the deck is very inexpensive. You can change out more expensive cards in the deck like Ready Fusion for other trap cards, and you can change out cards like Access Code Talker for like a Borreload or a Borrelsaur, which makes the deck a lot more budget than this particular build for you guys that want to play it on a budget. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.